Hey guys, Sundown here. This is going to be my chapter review to Nanatsu no Taizai 264, or the 7 Deadly Sins 264, A Warped, Twisted, Broken Man. Now this chapter, once again, awesome chapter. I really enjoyed it, but I do have one major gripe with it. And if you've watched my previous reviews, I think you'll know pretty much straight away exactly what my gripe is. And I really didn't like that part, but I kind of, in the background, I was kind of expecting this to fully happen, because I didn't really see another way for Estarossa to get out. Okay, I'll tell you straight away. I wasn't expecting Estarossa to get out without really absorbing a commandment, unless Cusack and Chandler popped up. But he does absorb the commandments, and that was something that I was quite annoyed by. But I was also expecting it, so that lessened the blow quite a bit. Let me just put my phone on silent. Yeah, but other than that, I really enjoyed the review. So the chapter even. So the chapter starts with Sariel and Harmiel narrating Estarossa's final moments. They're just kind of watching it full David Attenborough. They're just like, and now he's going to die. And I was like, all right, you guys have fun over there. So their attack is called the Divine Wrath of Enlil. I think we found that out last chapter, but this chapter just reminded us, or we found out this chapter. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It was called the Divine Wrath of Enlil. But essentially, the purpose of this attack is to prevent specifically any regenerative types, so someone like a demon, from regenerating, breaking them down to the molecular level, so making it really, really difficult for them to regenerate to any level. And the part that I felt was weird here, though, was the part where they say atone for your sins. It's on the first page, so I'm not going to put in a little thumbnail of exactly what it was. But on the first page, it says something like the part where they say atone for your sin of killing Mael with destruction. And I was like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Like, I genuinely do not know what that's supposed to mean. I feel like this was maybe manga stream with the liberal translation, which it usually is, and it's usually quite good. But if it's not them being liberal with the translation and they translated it as well as they could have, what the hell is that supposed to mean? You destroyed Mael with destruction? Is that like an ability he has? Is that some sort of magic or something? Or is that just something they felt like saying? I have no idea what that was supposed to mean. Let me know if you guys read any other sort of translation and you understood exactly what they were saying. Either way, we see Estarossa on the verge of death, forced to make a decision. He summons Garen's commandment. We can see the kind of sign on the commandment that shows Garen's commandment. It looks like Garen's his kind of scythe halberd thing. And then we cut away to the Stigma forces. So we assume that Estarossa must have ingested it or absorbed it somehow. So here at the Stigma forces, we have Diane and King talking about how a large aura has vanished, obviously talking about Estarossa. Hauser is plagued by his knights. They're asking him whether they can eat or whether they can just take a leak or stuff like that. So they're just annoying him, but they do ask one valid question, which is, should they kill Daddy Eddie? Now, first off, none of them there can kill Daddy Eddie apart from probably King, Diane, and Elizabeth, and maybe even Gautha actually. But for the human knights to ask that, I was like, you're getting a bit too big for your boots. But they do ask a valid question: should we trust Daddy Eddie, essentially? And Hauser, although usually a man of emotion, is often quite considerate and doesn't look like he wants to kill Daddy Eddie, probably realizing that she's not a threat at this moment in time and could be a great ally. So he just goes silent, and I assume he then kind of tells his knight like, nah, we're not going to do this. So we then get this scene between Elizabeth and Daddy Eddie, with Daddy Eddie asking Elizabeth what Monspeed. I found out his name's actually Monspeed, like I mentioned last chapter, and I was like, what? But yeah. So she asks Elizabeth what Monspeed could have wanted to tell her but didn't. And I think Elizabeth kind of has an idea of what Monspeed wanted to say, but doesn't want to presume in this situation, with him being dead and stuff. So she just says, I don't know what he was going to say. So Daddy Eddie then kind of expresses her guilt, saying Monspeed would always be around her, never really saying anything. He'd always have like zero complaints, but he'd always protect her. He'd always go with her into like the fray of the battle and stuff like that. And she never did anything for him in return. To console her, Elizabeth kind of tells Daddy Eddie that that's exactly what her relationship with Meliodas is, which is why she's doing everything she can now to stop Meliodas. Now, with all that having been said, with that specific part about I'm doing everything I can now to help Meliodas, but to repay him for every time he's helped me, I thought that this was going to lead to Daddy Eddie doing something that would kind of save Monspeed in terms of his commandment or something like that from Estarossa, which we actually get an opportunity to do later this chapter, but she doesn't do that. So I was like, what was the point in all of this? So that part of the chapter was slow, but I liked it because it took us away from Estarossa. But the whole conversation between Elizabeth and Derriere, I thought could have amounted to something and really didn't. So after that, Tarmiel and Sariel return, having finished off Estarossa, or so they thought. Derriere, King, and Diane shit themselves as they see Estarossa just chilling behind Sariel and Tarmiel, and Gila's just there like, hey, I think you missed the spot. So we then get a single page kind of dedicated to the new Estarossa after having ingested essentially Garen's commandment, and he looks awesome as hell. He's got this kind of like circle of darkness spanning his back, with 6 dark wings, kind of reflecting Tarmiel's design of 6 light wings, even in appearance. And his darkness kind of encompasses most of his forearms down, ending with like these long skeletal-like fingers even. His darkness also covers him from the waist down, ending at the feet, which are kind of like as if he was wearing tights which were too long for him. So there's just kind of drooping off of his feet. But most disturbing in this whole situation is his face, which really sums up the title of the chapter. A twisted, corrupted, and broken-minded appearance. Estarossa just looks like he's gone ape. He's gone crazy. And his forehead also has a demonic mark, but nothing noteworthy at this point. So Tarmiel and Sariel aren't intimidated in the slightest, but they are slightly intrigued and slightly shocked by how Estarossa could have escaped from the dimension they created. I forgot what it's called, the dimension of God or something like that. And how he is healed after all that damage that they just rained down on him, literally. So Derriere realizes at this point what Estarossa must have done, and she's like, oh shit. And Hawk tells us that his new power level is 88k. Now, I'm not a big fan of the power levels, but I am aware that 88k is quite high. I mean, it's not quite Meliodas' assault level at this point, but it's quite high. But yeah, just come back on that point. I really don't like power level like scaling in this manga. If you know, we know how powerful someone is just by everyone else's reaction and who they're fighting against. The whole having a numerical value for power level really puts me off. I know some of you guys like it. I just don't think it's worth it. I mean, even in Dragon Ball Z, they really dropped that after this first initial saga where Vegeta and Nappa came down and stuff like that. Yeah, so he's gotten pretty damn powerful here. Now, the interesting part is Galtha's response to Estarossa's transformation, saying his twisted soul has become all the more warped. Now, Galtha was a commandment, so would be privy to Estarossa's past, just like how the other commandments are. But his melancholy face and just makes it feels like he knows so much more than we think he knows at this moment in time. And there's got to be something more between Galtha and Esther, just in general, or Galtha and Mile and Esther, because Galtha's interaction with this whole situation has been really, really weird. So Estarossa goes full creep, licking his lips, asking the 2 Archangels to play with him some more. He spears Tarmiel, encompassing him in his darkness and raking his face and shoulders with his new claw-like fingers, really propelling him straight towards the ground and knocking him into the ground. This was an awesome little scene because Sariel actually realizes that Estarossa's darkness stopped Tarmiel from assuming his liquid form, which is what his ocean allows him to do, and it prevented him using his grace. Now, I really like this kind of power-dependent battle between light and dark, and how it actually has a physical appearance in the manga. You know, I mean, like, the more powerful an archangel or a demon becomes, their actual darkness or their light has something that actually does has a physical effect in their world, and it's a really, really cool thing to distinguish. So Estarossa tries to bear hug Sariel, but Sariel places like a sphere of violent winds around him, which minces the shit out of Estarossa's torso, and really his body, actually spraying blood everywhere. And you have knights at the bottom, and I thought this was funny because it's raining blood at this point, and they're just there going, oh shit, oh my god. And I was like, why don't y'all, like, they just stood there watching, and I was like, this is pretty funny. So you'd think that move would have stopped Estarossa, but he breaks through this tornado sphere and hugs the everlasting crap out of Sariel. And I liked how we were also shown the blowback of both of their strength with that tornado sphere collapsing. We get like winds flying outward in kind of like this explosive fashion. So Sariel then pops a new attack in his desperation, trying to get Estarossa off of him, called Cleaving Sickle Wind, which literally cleaves Estarossa in two. Now, if you weren't getting the crazy vibes from Estarossa, then this panel and this page would have given you some sort of like crazy reading, because Estarossa just laughs it off, and he's been cleaved in two, and he's just a complete madman at this point. So while Sariel wonders what Estarossa must have done to gain this crazy power up, crazy because all of Sariel's bones were actually broken just in that one bear hug, Estarossa uses his darkness to reattach the other 40% of his body that's just been split from him. However, while he's doing this, Tarmiel strikes Estarossa just as he's healing with a huge pillar of water, utilizing his ocean. Once again, Estarossa really shows us how mad he's become. He's lying on the floor with most of his body missing, laughing at how amazing the Archangels are, and he's like, yo, you guys are really good, and you're really powerful and stuff like that. And half of his body, like literally actually it's more than half, a third of his body actually is just missing. Would it be? Yeah, most of his torso is missing from like the neck to the waist, completely gone, and he's just there laughing. So what I wanted to know actually though was, how was this attack not nearly fatal for Estarossa? I mean, we know that demons have 7 hearts, but surely in this one attack from Tarmiel, around 4 of his 7 hearts should have been destroyed in that one attack. I mean, like, he's missing his torso. There's got to be some collateral damage. There's got to be some hearts that were destroyed in that attack, right? So yeah, I'm not too sure about what exactly happened there, but Estarossa is just laughing it off, and he's a complete madman. So we see Sariel and Tarmiel heal up in some kind of like holy sparkles, shocked at how strong Estarossa has become. And Derrieri kind of warns the 2 Archangels that Estarossa shouldn't be taken lightly, as he has just absorbed Garen's commandment. Now, this part of Manga Stream is also a bit weird, because I feel like it should have said, watch out, he has absorbed Garen's commandment, but it says he's in the process of absorbing Garen's commandment. And I was like, no, he's kind of already done that part. He's already absorbed Garen's commandment. I think it should have been translated to that. But then again, I can't read nor speak Japanese, so it's up to them what they translated it as. So now they're obviously shaken by this fact, both Sariel and Tarmiel having never faced a demon with 2 commandments before. And this is where we come to my major gripe with Estarossa's power up. I really don't think that Estarossa would have been or should have been aware of how to absorb a commandment, seeing as how he didn't even know until a few chapters ago that extracting them was even possible. Just consider that for a moment. He didn't realize that extracting a commandment was possible, and therefore didn't realize that inhibiting or possessing 2 commandments within one demonic body was nothing he'd ever dreamed of before. And now he's just chilling with 2 inside him. And like, I'd understand if Zeldris or Meliodas taught him how to extract a commandment, but then to absorb a commandment, I'm not sure if they would have taught him that. Or maybe it's just something really simple, like he just throws it towards himself. He doesn't have to chant anything or do anything. He just absorbs it by having it in his possession. But yeah, I was really shocked by that. And additionally, one of my subscribers, Jockey or however you pronounce it, mentioned that insanity was a small price to pay for someone like Estarossa, seeing as he was mentally unstable anyway. And I agree with him. You know, that's not exactly the biggest price for someone like Estarossa to pay. But I trust Nakaba will show us the consequences, what the consequences are for Estarossa sooner or later. And actually, there's another point I'd like to make in a bit. Actually, I'll make that in a bit. But then shit hits the fan as Esther realizes that his possession of 2 commandments, his own and Garen's, hasn't granted him enough power to take on 2 Archangels. So he summons Monspeet's commandment, with Derrieri realizing exactly what he's about to do. Now, after a conversation with Elizabeth, like I said before, I really thought this would be her time to shine, stealing Monspeet's commandment from Estarossa and disallowing him from utilizing it. But she didn't really do anything. She saw what he was about to do, and I think it was just that Estarossa was too quick and simply shoved the commandment into his chest, getting a disgusting power up part 2. So with a bellow of hate, anger and pain, darkness explodes around Estarossa, creating like this tornado of darkness around him, and Derrieri shits herself, telling everyone to evacuate. Now, the other thing here is that I'd like to mention is I just read the Crunchyroll like official. Is it an official translation? I don't know. Their translation seems to be a bit more official than the fan subs we usually get from Manga Stream. But their official translation of chapter 258, which is where I've been getting my main argument of Meliodas doesn't require half a day to absorb 5 commandments. He just said he needed half a day in which to absorb all of the commandments after absorbing these 5. Now, I just read it, and it actually says that it should take half a day to absorb them all, barring any incompatibilities. And I think Meliodas is referring to the 5 he's got on him. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is, in chapter 258, Meliodas does actually say it's going to take him 5 days. It's going to take him half a day to absorb 5 commandments. The 5 commandments he has on him, it's going to take him half a day to absorb all of those. Now, the important point I'd like to make here is that in this chapter alone, within the space of about 2 minutes, Estarossa has absorbed 2 commandments on top of his own. So there must be some major backlash to this, because Meliodas is doing it in the safest way possible, trying to make sure that there aren't any rejection symptoms. But I assume there's got to be some sort of rejection hitting Estarossa sometime soon, because he's absorbed 2 commandments in like 2 minutes. So there's got to be something negative that's coming his way. Taliel and Samiel look on in shock as gaping holes have been blasted through their chests, and obviously, I'm not too sure if it's obvious, but I really don't think they're dead, and I feel like they have yet to unleash their full power. But damn, Estarossa is putting in some major work right now. With that, Estarossa reintroduces himself as the great Meliodas, for some reason, with everyone around him now very afraid. He looks very much like Meliodas with his new kind of darkness and look thing going. He's got this now high collared darkness, much like Meliodas in his assault mode, and he now has a sun-shaped marking on his forehead, very assault mode like, and very reminiscent of Meliodas' assault mode. So the question here is, why does he introduce himself as Meliodas? And I really only have 2 explanations. Someone mentioned this on Reddit, but it could be that Meliodas is a title given to the strongest demon or the next in line to be the Demon King. That would be a great way for Estarossa to kind of announce himself, like, I am now the Meliodas. Or the other explanation could be Estarossa has just gone batshit crazy, more crazy than he was at the beginning of the chapter, and he just legitimately thinks that he is Meliodas. So that would be a weird way to go about it, and it would show just how crazy he is. But yeah, after all is said and done, I really enjoyed that chapter. I just had that one major gripe with Estarossa. Should he have been able to absorb a commandment? You guys tell me how you feel about that. And that's about it. Yeah, really good chapter. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's Golden Week, so I don't think any chapter is going to be coming out the rest of this week. But let me know what you guys thought of this review, what you liked, and all that good stuff. And I'll talk to you guys in a bit.